My session is about user workspace virtualization. I feel it's very important that any company needs to seriously look at this form of technology. Once again, thanks to our sponsors. Any sponsors here? Oh, Sammy, thank you very much. Admanize, Picture. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Adnan Hendriks. I've been in IT for like too long. And I'm a member of IMCT and Microsoft Learning Regional Lead, STEP member, and my Twitter handle and email address the same. So this is my agenda for today. Firstly, I'm going to start at why the session is important to me, or why I feel people need to look at UEV, or not just UEV, but this type of technology. We're going to cover the architecture, look at that it's really just an agent. We're going to see what settings, location templates are all about, and look at what's new in the beta version of the product. And at the end of the session, there'll be time for a Q&A, but I like interactive sessions, so if you have a question, immediately put up your hand and I'll address it immediately. I don't like to wait right at the end, because being a person that asks a lot of questions myself when I attend sessions, I sometimes forget. So if you have a question, immediately we can have a look at it. So if we look at why the session, let's go back to when I started my career in IT in the 90s. This was my first computer. You could only really run one program at a time. I started as a dev, and there was no real user experience. Step forward to the current situation. We now have where people are using multiple devices. We got laptops, tablets, desktops, even the Xbox and Windows phones. So we're running the same type of operating system across devices and more or less the same applications. Like Gita was showing in her session, developing the same app to run on Windows Phone and the Windows 8, 8.1 OS. So that's the state we're living in now. So with user experience virtualization or user workspace virtualization, we need to look at how we can keep our settings or our preferences the same across all these different devices, so that the people using them, the business consumers, we don't use users or in the Netherlands anymore, we use the term business consumers, to give them that freedom to use the same application, have the same look and feel across all their devices, whether they're using a tablet, a desktop, or a laptop. So the playing field today, virtualization is big business in IT. We're virtualizing our servers in the data center. We have hosted desktops or VDI environments. So we're offering different kinds of virtualization in the data center. At the same time, nowadays we're running virtualized applications. So instead of installing applications locally via an MSI, we can use products like AppV and run them virtually on our computers or servers. At the same time, we use folder redirection to make sure that the user's data moves with them across the device, so that they have all access to the data, whether they online or offline, with offline files, things like direct access. And at the moment, application settings virtualization, or UEV, or user workspace virtualization, allows the settings within the application. So where you have AppV, wherever the user logs on, the application will stream to or start up. With UEV, you can have his settings follow him from one device to another device. So it doesn't matter which device the user logs on, he gets the same experience, the same look and feel. With folder redirection, he has access to his information, his data, With AppV, wherever he logs on, if AppV client is installed, the application will start up or stream. Even if the application is not on the device, if you look at certain applications like Office 365 and that, with web apps, you just have to click on the document and the application will start up. So that's our playing field at the moment. But just to show you what user experience virtualization is all about, I'm going to jump into my demo so you guys can see what it is all about. Now, my first environment is a Windows 7 computer. So this is your enterprise environment. You have a user in your organization. He logs onto his computer. In this case, it's a Windows 7 computer with the old Start button and Start menu. So if I click on the Start, I've got a Start menu. With his profile loaded, he's got the background. Normally it's somebody's dog, his wife, the kids, family, etc. So if a user opens up an application, this could be, I'm using the calculator, but this could be any application in your organization. Your own line of business application, a CRM application, you name it. So the person will go in and he can make changes within his application. So let's say he makes a bunch of selections. I'm using the programmer, and let's say he has driven to Helsinki, so he needs to look at his fuel consumption. So a user will work in an application, change a bunch of settings for his own personal preferences. And his application, and he might go and work on another device with running the same application. I'm going to move across. Now notice I'm staying logged in. I'm going to move across to a Windows 8 computer and log on as the same person. Now this could be a laptop. He could be working via RDS, remote desktop services, or a Windows tablet. So the same user logs on. His profile will load up. As you can see, it's got the profile's loaded, Windows 8, no start button. And when the user opens up the same application on this computer, he'll have the same settings of that application. So the settings roam across seamlessly, providing the same look and feel. So instead of having the default method or mode of the calculator opening up, it's exactly as he left it on the other computer. So if you were to make changes on this version of the application, or instance, so we changed the look and feel of the application. When he closes the application and goes back on another computer or back home or his other device, and he opens up the same application, all his settings seamlessly moved across. So that's the working of user experience virtualization, or UEV. Any questions?
Between those settings, most of the time synchronized between computers. Does it sometimes take some time, or do they need to be?
Now settings sync on different triggers. With applications, it's when the user closes the application or opens an application that the sync takes place. For the Windows settings, it's when the user either logs off, logs on, or connects to a remote desktop session, etc. So as you notice, the guy stayed logged on the Windows 7 computer and all the settings moved across. So there's different triggers. we look at the details of how UEV works in the rest of the application. Now going back to my presentation. The user has multiple devices giving him the same experience. And the idea or the pillars of the technology, UEV is personal or flexible, meaning its application settings and its OS settings roam across. So it could be Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and it could be any application. There's fast logins and smart syncs, and that's the triggers. So it's when the user opens an application or connects to a remote desktop or logs in onto another machine that the sync takes place or logoffs. It's simple and versatile in its operation by being granular. UEV works with templates in XML format, and you can customize that to your own specification by defining which settings can roam for that person. And you could also roll back settings to an initial state. If you have a default setup or configuration, you can roll back to that initial configuration. Because we know sometimes we make too many changes, we do something, and we just can't find our way back anymore. So with UEV, you could roll back to an initial settings configuration. It's also integrated. Yeah, great.
Roll back just a few steps back. Like user change something on Wednesday, and they want to go back to Monday's setting.
The question is, can the user roll back to another step or another change? The answer is maybe, depending on when we have a look at the different settings templates and settings packages. It depends on the backup that you make. So if you, let's say, made a backup of the user settings package, which is where the information of all the settings is saved. Let's say you made a backup of yesterday, you could roll back to yesterday's settings. So, does that answer your question?
I guess so. But then you have to get administrators involved.
Well, you just need a good backup system in place.
Yeah.
No. No. When we look at the new beta version, UEV 2.0, we look at the different customizations that the user can do on his own. But with version 1, it's not that flexible. UEV is integrated and scalable, meaning the application is rolled out with easy deployment. The way you roll out your applications is no specific method. So if you're using MDT, manual installation, scripts, group policy, you can roll out the application or configuration manager. It's also easy management with your existing applications. So the UEV experience is really the application settings. UEV is part of the MDOP virtualization suite of products. So if you're an enterprise agreement customer with software assurance, you have it for free to use. It's really just an agent. We'll have a look at the agent. A setting storage location, which is really just a folder where the settings will be saved, the settings packages. By default, it will use the user's home folder if you don't create a custom folder for it to use. And it uses setting location templates to tell it where to go and look for those settings. And later on, we'll have a look at how to create customized templates and also look at what these templates look like when we deal with the UEV generator. So a user will have multiple devices, even remotely. And when he logs onto the different devices, he'll have access to the same applications with the same settings. So if it's the same application, one thing you need to note is that UEV looks at the version of the application. So it needs to be the same version. So if you have Office 2007 or Office 2010, the settings won't run. It has to be the same version.
Can you migrate? Like you're upgrading from 2007 to 2013, and they have changed it to black Office theme that
You could do that. The question was, can you migrate? Let's say you're moving up to a different version. The only caveat to that is that UEV doesn't work with Office 2013. You create customized templates for that because Microsoft provides customized templates for version 2007 and Office 2010. But with Office 2013 and Office 365, the syncing of settings within the application is by default built into the application. So that is possible with 2007, 2010. You can go and create customized templates for Office 2013. Yeah.
Do you know if there's any reasoning behind why it's taking so long to get to 2013, or like a schedule of when they're going to release it, or are they going to?
They're not going to release it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry if I missed. Did you say if there's a reason for it?
The reason is that it's already built into Office 2013. So you don't need to sync it.
Ah, okay.
That functionality is built into Office 2013 and Office 365. Okay. So, which is why they didn't provide templates. And also, you can go and create
I've seen those.
custom templates, specify the version number using Office 2010, and also telling it where to go and find the settings because of the different folder names.
If I have like Office 2013 in my company installation for everyone and they're not using any Microsoft accounts or anything like that, how?
You don't need Microsoft accounts.
Where is it syncing to?
Profile. That's the information that I have.
Okay.
But whether they, as far as I know, they're not planning on releasing.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Spoke to one of the guys.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
So, logs in, you'll have a folder, and all the settings will sync. When we have a look at the
a little bit. It seems that there's a community supported UAV technique for Office 2013.
Yeah, those are the custom templates. Yeah.
those are custom. When we look at customized templates, we'll have a look at that. With the UEV generator, you can go and create your own customized templates. So there's a community of people across the world that uses technology, and they've used the generator to create customized templates, because Microsoft only delivers a default set of Windows settings and certain Windows applications, etc. So we'll have a look at the templates available. Looking at the architecture, it's really simple. It's really just an agent looking at where the application saves or looks for settings, and also the folder where the settings are stored on a file server. So it's really flat. If you look at other technologies or products that create the same functionality, they're more complex. They require a database, SQL database, and more infrastructure. So with UEV, it's really simple. It's really just an agent that looks across at a folder on a file server or the user's default home folder. So the application looks at the registry and local folders on the machine for its settings. The agent also looks at where the application is hooking into those settings. And any changes that gets made to the application settings, the agent will go and write that change at the settings package of the application. When the user logs on to another machine or re-accesses the application, opens it up, the agent will provide the information based in that settings package and present that to the user.
That means like in a Citrix example, you could use the Citrix, you can, when you clear, it specifies you don't have to roll many setting roles for those things, so you will have a fast login experience.
That's already fast because you separating the application settings from the profile.
Yeah.
In the old days, the problem was always to use the profile. Get too big, and what did you have to do to fix that problem? You had to delete the entire profile or section of the profile, and all the settings, the rest of the settings of the application was gone. All these settings, so start all over, and you'd have slow logins if the profile was too big. So that was always the problem we struggled with. So with UEV, you're separating all the application settings, putting them in a different location, and the idea is to keep those settings packages are quite small, so the sync is really fast. It's really small, 2 KB, 4 KB, very small. Question?
Actually, comment. I think you should be quite careful what to define in the custom.
That's true.
Profile, because users, if it's in one room, it's okay that the settings follow user. But if you have a laptop and a desktop, you probably don't want to have the settings are the same on these different computers. So if the user is traveling and it's just a much confused user, it suddenly the look and feel is different. Because
it's not
different screen states and you might want to have different settings. But if you have a security environment, if you have different servers, it's okay that the settings between the servers stays, because user doesn't decide what server he ends up to.
Yeah, but it's the user's own personal settings. So
Yeah.
it's what he would like to.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I get a new computer, it takes me a while to get it precisely the way I want it. I'm sure with you guys, we IT people, so that we like to have our own applications, everything. And if you get a new laptop with this technology, you just have to plug in the laptop, switch it on. You can build the agent within your image. So the minute the user logs in, all the information is data. It's synced with folder redirection. And with UEV, all his settings on his old computer or the way he had it is exactly the same. And that's the idea with UEV, to present the exact same look and feel across all the devices. And that's true. You have to, when we look at the templates, the generator, when we specify which locations, the idea is to limit those amount of settings that you provide. Or you might have default settings within an application specifying the location of a database, for example. So you don't want the user to just go and change everything if it's available to him.
If I install this, then I won't get, for every settings covered, I won't get any data written in the app data folder for Office, for example.
You still get things in the profile that you specify.
Should be in
It will be in the settings packages.
They will never even be written to the app data folder.
Well, it will get written to the app data folder because what the agent does is it takes what's in the settings packages and syncs the app data folder with what's in the settings package. So it's like it's always taking what's there and writing out what's on the local machine.
Yeah, but I can throw it. I can throw the app data folder. I don't need to keep it in the instant for that application.
No. It's there by default anyway. So moving on, to just show you the scope. I normally deploy applications and UEV using Configuration Manager. So once again, a user will have access to different devices. And just to show that wherever he logs in, whether it's an MSI-based application, a virtualized application with AppV, whether he's using RDS to access via mobile phone, he's getting the same look and feel across all those devices. When we look at the requirements of the different operating systems, Windows 7 Server 2008, Windows 8, 8.1 can work on 32-bit or 64-bit. So there's an agent for 32-bit and 64-bit versions of the application, and it requires the .NET framework. And when you're looking at Server 2012 or 2012 R2 and 8.1, it needs .NET 4.0 or higher. 3.5 is for 32-bit. One last thing. With version 1 of the product, offline files enabled by default. You can specify not to enable offline folders. For example, if you're working in a terminal services or remote desktop services environment where you're providing always on access, and you don't need offline folder locations. With Windows 8, 8.1 and Server 2012, then that's off by default, disabled by default. Implementation of the product is really simple. It's really a 4-step process. You configure a storage location, so the home folder or a specialized folder on a file server, and the security rights should be exactly the same like you'd create for profiles or a custom home folder for a user. We generally use group policy to configure the agent. You could use scripts, Powershell, but in large organization, group policy preferences, or group policy is the preference. You select the default templates, or you're going to create customized templates for the applications, and you then deploy or manage the settings location templates. So you'd have to deploy them to every computer. Deploying the agent, you deploy it if you're using MDT, scripts, group policy to deploy applications, configuration manager. If you like the hard way and doing it manually, you could do that. So you could deploy the UEV agent. It's really just a setup.exe, exe file with a bunch of switches. You can change. So managing the agent, we'll have a look at the demo. We'll have a look at group policy. You could use System Center, desired configuration management pack for UEV. You could use scripts, PowerShell, so you could pretty much customize it the way you want with that, and you could specify specific settings. So. And I know you like PowerShell, so there's enough PowerShell commands to go and manage the agent with. So just listed a couple of default settings, importing the module for UEV. To see what settings are available, just use the get command and UEV module and get UEV configuration. I learned PowerShell, you could say, from Mark Manassi, and it's really just understanding the English language. You know, you have your verb and your noun. So let's go to our next demo. So in most organizations we use group policy. And And I just want to go and show you the location. So you'd have to either download the administration templates from the internet or get it from MDOP. And the location is in administrative templates, Windows components, Microsoft user experience virtualization. You just look at some of the options. You can either enable or not, leave it disabled using offline files. You can choose whether you want to allow the Windows settings to roam, or if you have a managed environment, you would disable that so that the user can't go and change the look and feel of the Windows OS. You can specify a setting storage path. If we have a look at that option in group policy, it's really just a file folder location on a file server. So exactly the way you'd set up a user's home folder or profile folder by specifying the % username variable. And you can enable or disable that setting. So the best practice is to create a custom setting storage location to store the packages. You could also use a catalog path, and that's really just a location on a file server where you store all your settings templates. So the user's computer will check that location. Are there any new templates? And just download them if there's one added. And that's only if you have a catalog path enabled. And then you can also enable or disable the use of UEV on certain computers in your organization. So you might want to have a specific system set up in a specific way where the user can't change that. So you'd could either enable, disable, or not apply the policy on those computers. Any questions? Nope. So let's just move on. So UV works with a different bunch of settings location templates. It's really just XML files that tell the agent where to go and look for the settings of the different applications. It has a bunch of default templates included, around about 17 to 21 default templates for the Windows OS environment, the default built-in applications on the operating system, and also things like Office 2007, Office 2010. You could also go and create your customized templates of your own application. I know the developer there at the back could create one for herself, the Windows 8 application. You place them in a catalog. So all the templates you create, you place them in a catalog so that it automatically gets synced to all the different computers. And once again, there's the community website. Because Microsoft allows the tools, but then the community can go and share their expertise and information. Because you might be, so before you go and create a custom one, have a look at the website. Maybe somewhere in the world somebody already created a template for you. So sharing is caring. So if you do have or create a custom one, just upload that. Now we're going to look at the generator. We use the generator to go and create a customized template. Now Microsoft provides the UV generator. I've already installed it on this computer. It's just an application for those of you familiar with using AppV and sequencing applications. It works on a similar concept. You go and install this generator on a computer, generally a cleanly installed computer. Yeah.
So again, where do you get this? You have to have.
Yeah, you have to have ML. So if you have software assurance, enterprise agreement, you already have it for free, so I see the use for it. And a lot of people haven't heard about it, even though it's in the version 2 is in beta. You have 3 options. You can create a settings location template. You can either edit them, the existing ones, and modify the version numbers, and maybe it will work for the new version, but you'll have to know where. You could also validate them because they are based on XML format, with specific structure. It won't validate the content, only the structure of XML format. So you can go and validate to see if that custom template, if you manually modified them. I recommend validating them because you might have made a mistake with quotation marks, commas, brackets, etc. Let's have a look. Now generally it should be on a clean machine with the application installed. I just want to see if the application is already installed on this machine. Program files, yeah. So I'm just going to use 7-zip. Yeah. So you'd install the application on the machine. You go and look at the file path. So you specify where to find the application. File name, the exe or the shortcut. If you have certain command line arguments to run the application, you can specify them. Working folder, you could specify, it's optional. Or you could go and specify it. I'm not going to bother to specify it. The wizard opens up and starts up the application for you. What you then do is you go and change as many settings that you want to allow the user to sync across the devices. And the idea is to not allow all of them, because you're trying to keep the size of the file that needs to sync quite small. So let's say for this application you want the user to be able to go to options. We could say working folder, current folder, specify. We could just allow full row select, show grid lines, use that. We could change languages so that if the user were to change the language, that setting would change. Change it to finish for Sammy. I must say it's the first country that I've been in where I absolutely have no idea where I am, what's happening, what people are saying. But, I feel like I'm in Lord of the Rings, so. Okay, so once you've made all the changes, you go and close the application. UEV would then go and look at the registry settings and the folder locations where the application wrote all the changes that we made. So I go next. And we'll see what the generator found. It found a registry key in software 7-zip. It's also handy if you want to find out information of an application where in the registry it makes changes to. For the stuff that Sammy does, you know, registry hacking and all that stuff, application. If we go to files, we can look at the, if we specified a specific path, we didn't. Here you can go and add. You can go and add locations, and we'll see. Editing information, you can change this. UEV always looks at the version number. So here you can go and specify it or change. If you're changing the existing one, you can go and change that. And this is where you you can go and add new registry locations and folder locations. By new, and then just go and add them. So every time changes gets made in that location, we'll save it. Create, you give it a name, you save it, and it will save in XML format and close. So if we go and look at that file that I just created, that's the format, that's the information, file name, the version numbers, and the path. So you can manually edit this file. You copy this file to your catalog or directly to the computers at the location where the templates are stored. Any questions? Okay. So when we look at what's new in the new version, it provides Windows 8 8.1 application support, so based on the app model. Now, when you create a Windows 8 app, the developer specifies if they allow the settings, if they provide that functionality. UEV only really enables that. So if it's already built into the application and the developer allowed it, UEV will go and you can specify roam that app. There's been certain synchronization improvements giving the user more flexibility of when the settings roam. So there's a manual option. Company Settings Center is also new, which is really this screen that I have here. And the user has flexibility to enable the different types of settings for Windows and also the different application settings. If you were to click on the drop-down box, you'll see the different options. And the administrator can either enable or disable this feature. Now, we live in a user-centric world where we want to provide that extra flexibility. And the user could click on Sync Now to sync the settings. So with the version 2, the only real difference is the syncing of the settings. So my demo is really just to show you that functionality where the user can change that. To just quickly show you, if I go to this computer, so I'm logged on as the user. one of the tray icons is the company. Oh, nobody's seeing that. And you guys don't say anything. Where was I? Yeah. So one of the tray icons is the company setting center. And when you click on it, it opens up, and here you give the person flexibility to go and either, in where you can specify you doesn't want this to sync or that to sync, and you can click sync now to immediately sync everything. Any questions? Because we are almost done. So just to recap a bit, we looked at what UEV is, how it works. You can pretty much manage it the way you do in your organization. You create custom templates using the generator. And any questions? This is a colleague of mine. He's actually an Active Directory MVP, so Active Directory for Dummies. Any questions? Nope. Well, once again, thanks to the sponsors. I love being at the summit, and it's always great to have great sponsors to allow us to come here and present and have a great event like we had last night at Sovelto. So, thanks again, Sammy. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day and have fun.